what we see here, a couple of batteries and some wires, and they're connected to this bulb. Now, you might or might not be able to see that the bulb is glowing. It's not glowing really very brightly. I could hook up another battery or two and make it glow a little more brightly, but just to see the contrast, we can see that the bulb goes off and then goes on when I clip or unclip the battery. Get the thing to... So we see it on, well, on, off, on, come on, on, off, on, off. Okay, now clipping and unclipping the battery isn't a real efficient way to turn the light on and off, so I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to put a switch into this circuit. Now this is the kind of switch you would use to wire your house, and you wouldn't want to do anything I'm doing here with the voltage that runs in your house. You could get shocked. It could even get injured. So whatever you do, don't do any of this with this kind of a switch. Those switches should be securely in a receptacle with a cover over them, so all you see is the little switch part that you throw. Okay, but the switch works in a very simple manner. I've got two little screws here. Okay, maybe you can see it better from this side. Screw here and a screw here. And the switch makes contact when it's in this position, and it interrupts the circuit in this position. It makes contact between these two screws in one position, breaks the contact in another position. Now I'm going to simply deattach the wire, one of the wires leading to the bulb, and I'm going to replace it with a wire leading from the switch. You see that I've clipped this wire onto one of the screws, and I'm going to take this lead that was attached to the bulb and attach it to this screw. Doesn't want to attach. Let's do it this way. Okay. It's not a real secure attachment, but it'll probably work. Okay, right now the switch is in the off position, meaning that the circuit is broken between this point and this point. But if I turn the switch on, we see that the light goes on. So now I have a way to turn the light on and off very easily. Now I want to add another switch to the circuit, and I'm going to do that off screen, but I'll show you how that's been done. Actually, I just decided that it was worth doing this on screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to deattach the clip from one of the screws, and I'm going to attach that to this bulb, to this switch, and to one of the terminals in this switch, and then I'm going to attach this to the other terminal and continue it on here. Now all I've done is I've simply interrupted this red wire here that was leading directly to this switch and then to the bulb, and I've interrupted it by inserting another switch. Okay, so now I've got two switches, and I'm just well, yeah, they have to be in compatible positions. Now what has to happen in order for the bulb to be on? Okay, well, right now both switches are off and the bulb is off. Now I flip this switch and flip this to the on position, and still both bulbs are off. And it shouldn't be any surprise, because if you understand that the switch simply interrupts the circuit when it's in the off position and allows current to flow when it's on the on position, this is very straightforward. So now I'm going to turn this one off and turn this one on. Now, is that going to turn the bulb on? You should think about that, but here we go. Bulb's still off. Well, let's see now. When both switches were off, the bulb was off. When this switch was on and this one was off, the bulb was off. When this switch was on and this one off, the bulb is still off. Let's see what happens if both switches are on. Oh, my goodness. Okay, well, that shouldn't be a big surprise that that lights the bulb. Okay, now there's another way to attach the switches, and I'm not going to tell you what that way is. I really want you to think about it and think about how this might work, but I'll give you some hints, draw some diagrams on the board to represent what we've seen so far. Okay, now both switches, as you can see, I hope, are in the off position. If I turn this switch on, the light turns on. Now if I turn this one off, of course it goes back off. That's back where it was. So now both switches are again off. Now if I flip this switch, the light goes on. So all I have to do is flip one switch or the other, and the light goes on. Now what do you think is going to happen if I flip both switches? Well, think about it. Pause for a minute if you want to ponder it. But here we go. Both switches are on, and the light is on. Now we can represent the results of this set of observations as follows. If we have just one switch in the circuit, then the behavior of the circuit is very simple. If the switch is off, the light is off. If the switch is on, the light is on. Now, in the first configuration, not the one we have here, but in the first configuration, what was the rule? You should stop and see if you can state the rule for this first configuration. Okay? So, hopefully you've done that. Okay. In the first configuration, it's possible for both switches to be off, in which case the light is off. Now, if the first switch is on and the second is off, or let's say the first is off and the second is on, okay? It doesn't matter how you do this. Then what? Well, then the light is still off. Because remember, we had to have both switches on. But there are how many ways that the switches could be set? We could do off, off. We can do off, on. What are the other two possibilities if you haven't already thought of them? Okay, well, another possibility is the first switch is on and the second is off, in which case the light is still off. And the final possible configuration, you should be able to anticipate what I'm going to do here, is on, so that the light, as you saw, was on. Now, pause for a second and see if you can't, maybe a second, maybe several seconds. Again, you don't necessarily know, although if you look close enough, if the video is clear enough, you might be able to see how everything is hooked up. But I don't really want you to even think about that. Actually, I want you to think about that without seeing what's here, so don't look too hard. But what I want you to do is give me the rule for the second configuration. Okay, so I'm going to do that off camera, so you don't have to sit there and watch me write. It should be fairly straightforward, but see what you can do. Okay, here are the possible configurations. Off, 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 on, off, on, the same as they were over here. So, if both switches are off, we still have the configuration up. If both switches are off, what happened to the light? Well, if you were paying good attention, we see that the light was off. And we can repeat that just to be sure. We throw this switch off, and we throw this switch off, and sure enough, the light is off. Then what? If the first switch is off and the second is on, what happened to the light? Well, if you remember correctly, the light was on. Okay? So, light was on. Now, if the first switch is on, the second is off, well, the light, again, was on. Once more, you can throw that switch, and we see that the light goes on. And then, if both switches are on, the light, again, was on, as we can confirm by throwing that switch.